Thank you, Lex and Sunil, and please continue to inundate Lex's Slack channel with questions. She will get to all of them eventually. So up next, we have a couple of people who apparently got tired of watching Intel and operations pretend to understand each other and developed an open source tool called Piranha to help support the process of turning Intel from theoretical to operational. So please welcome William Smale and Jared Thornton.
Welcome to ATT&CKcon. I'm William Smale. This is Jared Thornton. See if we can get in. Here's our agenda that we're going to be going over. First, we're going to get into a legal disclaimer. We both are active duty Marines, so we kind of have to say this so we don't get in trouble. The following are our personal views and do not represent the official positions or opinions of the Department of War. This is our professional opinions, right? As cybersecurity professionals, we're not representing the Marine Corps or the government in any way. So who are we? Again, my name is William Smale. I'm an active duty sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. Let's go. I'm a current master host analyst on my team and the lead developer of Piranha and another tool called Barracuda that we'll get into. Fun fact about myself, I'm a proud owner of a 3-year-old Chesapeake Bay retriever named Oakley.
Afternoon, everyone. So I'm also an active duty sergeant in the United States Marine Corps.
Sure.
So I'm a all-source intelligence analyst, focusing on the cyber side now. And fun fact about me is I'm a lifelong Lego enthusiast. So thank you for the Feedly guys for that free Lego giveaway.
All right, so we're first going to address the problem that we were able to identify. So imagine it's a Friday and your boss comes up to you and says, hey, do we have a hunt plan ready for this thing? And you freak out, right? It takes forever to do these, to put together hunt and collection plans. But what if you had a tool that was able to take into account how your team hunts, the tools that you use to detect methodology based on the techniques that you want to look for, and takes into account any visibility gaps that you may have. As of right now, like I said, this process can take days if you're quick, but weeks if you're like me. Oops, I just went back. My bad. So currently, at least in our experience, the collaboration between cyber threat intelligence and cyber operations can be clunky, disjointed, abstract, can take a while. Intelligence analysts will know the reporting, they'll know how to find it, but they may lack experience with how that intelligence is actually operationalized. As a cyber operator, cyber analyst, I may know how to hunt on stuff, but I don't necessarily know the reporting and everything that goes into doing that. So overcoming this disjointedness is what can absolutely make or break an operation and can determine success or failure of a mission. So this is where Piranha comes in. So like I said, Piranha is a tool developed to overcome the gap that we currently face between cyber threat intelligence and cyber operations. We'll get more into detail with all these, but it has automated team-specific technique to tool mapping. You're able to upload Nessus scans, and it can parse the Nessus scan, find all the CVEs in it. You can optimize your hunt plan, and then you can also create profiles. Again, we'll get into all this stuff. So how does it do that mapping from technique to tool? Well, it looks at the description field of the techniques that are associated with the APTs and tactics, and it parses it out. It looks at analyst-defined keywords, what you would look at as an analyst to be like, I need to do this sort of thing. You then map those keywords to indicators of methodology, is what I call them, or you can even do indicators of compromise, and you map those indicators of methodology then to your tool, the tools that you would use on your team to find said methodology. These mappings become persistent. That means you put them in once and you don't have to put them in there again. If Piranha goes and finds that keyword in another description, it'll map it. This means that over time, Piranha becomes extremely tailored to how your team hunts. So this is, I don't know how well you guys can see that, hopefully all right. This is kind of the landing page that you get into once you load into Piranha. On your left-hand side, you're going to have your APT selection. Next to that, you'll have your tactic selection. And those are the only two things you need in order to start generating reports with Piranha. At the bottom is going to be a report. You're going to have APT, category, your technique, what data set it's coming out of, as well as the description of how that APT uses the technique, right? Some classic attack stuff. I think we're all familiar with the stuff. And then it has your indicators of methodology, the keywords that have been identified by Piranha and what you have mapped them to. After that, you have the tools that are mapped to those indicators. And then next to that, you also have your MITRE detections. So I think actually the updates that are coming out in version 18 of the attack framework are going to feed beautifully into this. You might also notice that big spaghetti mess up there. That is our node analysis graph. I created that because I'm colorblind and I can't really look at the attack navigator and identify the overlapping techniques. So I was like, what if I made something that kind of looks similar to like Bloodhound's node analysis? So that's what that's showing right there. When you click on one of those nodes, it highlights what it's shared with. So when you click into one of these rows, it'll give you all the information about the row. Again, it just has the same sort of information, just in a prettier form for you to be able to see it. This is where you would go and say you saw something that said no IOMs found or no IOCs found. Be able to go in here, read through the description, and figure out what you want to parse out of that description field. Here we have the interface that we use to manage our keywords. So that is a list of all the currently loaded in keywords. I have Eternal selected, so that's going to catch everything that mentions Eternal Blue, Eternal Romance, Eternal Synergy, all that good stuff. And there we have the IOM list that all that stuff is actually mapped to, along with the detection tools that we would use on our team to be able to hunt on this sort of methodology. So next we get into the Nessus scan parsing and technique correlation. So this will allow you or your team to actually be able to upload a raw Nessus scan straight out of Nessus. It will parse through your report for the CVEs and the CVSS scores and be able to map those CVEs to techniques. It will then cross-compare the techniques that are associated with your CVE, or with your CVEs rather, to the techniques that are included in your generated report. So you're going from straight up intelligence-driven hunt plan to this is what actually matters based on what my attack surface looks like. This is kind of what it looks like when you generate one of those heat maps. It's a 3-dimensional heat map. If you were to, or if I had a live demo, I'd be able to scroll over one of those little bars there and it would give me information about the specific technique it's representing. But the information that's included in that is how many APTs have been seen using this technique that's associated with the CVE in your main generated report, how many CVEs are associated with it, and then what is the mean and the max CVSS scores associated with those CVEs. On the left, you're going to see the CVEs that have been loaded in from the Nessus scan that I did and just loaded it in for the screenshot. You can also add your own custom CVEs. I had a question from Andy Castro saying, if I have a CSV and I wanted to put all those CVEs into Piranha, would I be able to do that? Well, the answer is yes. You'd be able to just copy it out of your CSV. I'll probably add functionality like the next week because it was a question I got to be able to put those custom CVEs into Piranha so that I can do the same thing. This is the optimization feature of Piranha. So again, if you were going straight from intelligence to collection or hunt plan to execution of the plan, without being able to have a visualization, what I have noticed across teams is that we'll get out to wherever we're doing a mission or an operation, and we'll notice that we're lacking areas that we should have been looking for. And that's what this is showing us right here. So based on the generated report that I showed you guys in the beginning, we would notice that we're good on our host collection sources. However, we're lacking on our network collection, host interrogation, and host memory analysis. So Piranha allows us to go in and say, this is how many tactics I want to include in my hunt plan. These are the tactics that I want to exclude. So if you're not necessarily concerned with hunting on reconnaissance, you can exclude that. And then you can adjust those sliders to have your hunt plan represent any visibility gaps or the type of hunt operation that you're doing. So if you're doing a forensics mission, for instance, you might not care about network collection. So you would just put that slider all the way down and then adjust the other sliders so that they equal 100%. And once you hit start optimization, Piranha will go through, it'll find the lowest standard deviation from where you actually want to be based on those sliders. So after that, it comes out and it says, hey, the best tactic combination for these APTs that you've selected with these values for your ideal distribution, it's going to be, I don't know if you guys can read that, it says execution, discovery, and C2. So we change that, we generate the report, and that's where we sit after. So we are covered down with host collection, network collection a lot better, host interrogation, and memory analysis. So what we just did in those simple steps is we went from intel driven, right? So we just select who we care about, what we care about them doing. Go from that to what techniques actually matter, to how do I make this hunt plan as optimized as I can? How am I getting the most bang for my buck when I'm going out? The next thing that Piranha is able to do is generate profiles. So another lack that I've seen is we don't really share hunt plans, like the technical stuff about what we're doing and why. Piranha allows you to generate Piranha profiles that include the name of the profile, the author, so who wrote this thing, the profile description, why did we write it, maybe where are we using it, why are we using it, why did we choose these specific APTs or tactics, and if you have any like sourcing that you want to include, you can include it in here. So once you put all of that information into the profile builder, then you will be able to load it back into Piranha, and you'll be able to actually compare it to a Nessus scan. Or you can share it with your friends, and they can see what you did, they can change it, they can edit it, and they can see exactly why you're hunting on XYZ and where you're getting that information from. On the right is going to be the profile view. It's just going to show you a pretty way that you can look at these profiles and see exactly what's included. At the bottom is going to be your Nessus scan comparison. You have a Nessus scan, and you want to know how well your profiles fit within that scan to see overlapping techniques, overlapping CVEs, if there's a specific CVE that you see in a Nessus scan, and you have a profile that includes that CVE, that might be worth looking into. And then it has a bunch of scores down below that show you, this is how well my profile fits the scan, this is how well the scan meets the profile, and this is the combination of both of those.
All right, good afternoon again, everybody. So now that, as Will just walked through Piranha and how to use it, well, what can we use it for? Because typically as an analyst, we get thrown a new tool, somebody makes something new, and, we're just giving it. We don't know, we don't know how to integrate it into current operations. So what can we use Piranha for? Tactic threat actor correlation. We can compare known tactics to current reporting, and then we can use what we gathered from Piranha with the current reporting to then get our threat prioritization, basically getting the best bang for our buck. So picture as a CTI analyst, you're at your desk and you're reading through reports. And this report catches your eye because it's important to your organization. So this report states that unknown threat actors are exploiting ServiceNow's platform using 3 current CVEs, and notably, 70% of recent attacks have targeted Israel. So note on this reporting that a threat actor or a possible threat actor is not stated. Okay, as a intel analyst, cyber threat intel analyst, what I really deal with is the adversary, right? So what I want to know that adversary so I can expand upon it, do more in-depth research to generate a hunt plan around. With Piranha, we can help identify that. So we first start by doing some baseline analysis, right? I see majority of these attacks are happening on Israeli systems. So who has a vested interest or motivation to go on those networks, exploit those networks? Well, could be possibly some sort of Middle Eastern APT or attributed to that group. So once we have our baseline analysis, you can combine it with other multi-source reporting, we can run all of the Middle Eastern APTs inside of Piranha's main analysis. What this does is it just grabs all the tactics associated with them and everything with those different groups. What we can do is we can compare the tactics that Piranha, that the main analysis tab grabbed for us. We can compare it against current reporting, we can compare it against the current reporting and also the CVEs that are specified in the reporting. Because with Piranha, you can upload a custom nested scan if you want. However, if we're just running a couple CVEs, there's a quick CVE to technique mapper, which will map those techniques for us. So we can just do that manual analysis, compare known tactics to current reporting. After we do that, and we can export everything into Excel or whatever we want to work in, we can then create basically an ordered list of kind of like our prioritized list APTs that we want to look for. No, we're not trying to do any sort of attribution because this tool is that's not what it's for. We're just trying to get into a nice big blue arrow of trying to direct us on what we need to go to. So what this list is essentially a kind of a research priorities for your CTI analysts. What this does is, hey, what is the best bang for my buck for me to research, want me to dive more in depth through, identify more CVEs that they're exploiting, more tactics, more behavior patterns that I can better inform the cyber analyst to go out and hunt for, and how they can generate their hunt plan and kind of tailor it to them to better find, what we actually are looking for. After all that analysis, we want to capture all that good analysis because that took us a lot of time, and I want to save people time in the future because I already did that analysis. So we can capture all that left of operation analysis into a Piranha profile. I can update it as I need it, as I go. I can send it off to other analysts, or if I'm doing repeat operations on the same or similar terrain, it's just a repeat. I don't have to do that analysis again. Also, with the profile, as Will stated, that you can, once you ingest live data through a vulnerability scan, you can compare that and basically see, hey, are we actually vulnerable to these sorts of groups?
All right, so the next thing that I developed was, it was because of Jared coming up to me and saying, dude, I need something to get me from intelligence to being able to work with Piranha a little bit faster. So I came up with a second tool called Barracuda that is able to actually feed data into Piranha as well. So what is Barracuda? Barracuda is a machine learning engine that allows analysts to upload or enter a URL, upload a PDF, or just enter in raw text, and it will use a pre-trained machine learning model, essentially, to analyze the text within that and map it to MITRE attack techniques. You can then export your report after you parse it and you do a little bit of cleanup to an Excel, CSV, TSV, HTML, or JSON. JSON is going to be the file type that you're going to want to upload into Piranha, which is, I believe I have a screenshot in here. When I was doing research to try to figure out how to integrate or how to build Barracuda, I came across CTID's TRAM as well. But I noticed that it only identifies 50 techniques. Barracuda can identify every technique that is currently integrated into the framework. So what can it do, right? Like I said, it can automatically analyze reports. So it'll highlight sentences that are identified and associated with different techniques. This reduces analysis time from hours, possibly, to just minutes. So this is what it looks like when you load in. On the left-hand side, you have a preview. This is all the data that it scraped from, looks like recorded future for this one. On the right-hand side is going to be your analysis pane. So at the top of that analysis pane, you're going to have all of the identified techniques. And then at the bottom of that, you're going to have the sentences that are associated with whatever technique you clicked on, right? So that big blue box right there, that is the technique that I'm drilling into. And it says, command and scripting interpreter, network device CLI. And then it gives the sentence that is related to that, as well as a score that the model gave. So what you can do as an analyst is go through and read it in context if you would like, and see, okay, is this an accurate identification? If it is, you just leave it. If not, or if it's not as accurate as you would like, you can just drop it from your report. It also has a multi-tabbing system, so you can analyze multiple reports at one time, and this is adjustable. I think right now I just do 10, but you can change that to however many tabs you would like. So this is what the reports look like when you actually export them. On the left-hand side, you're going to have your HTML. On the right, you're going to have an Excel report. But again, you can also export to a CSV, TSV, or JSON. So what about feeding a report into Piranha? So when you're building your profiles, there is a section in there that allows an analyst to capture the additional techniques that they care about, either based on reporting or based on whatever they saw, and be able to compile that into the same profile. So that's all you would do. There's a button in Piranha that says upload Barracuda JSON. After you have exported your JSON report from Barracuda, you just upload it straight in there, and it will automatically parse the report, break out all of the techniques, and it will be included in your profile from there. All right, so I think we're doing pretty well on time. We'll have plenty of time for questions. In closing, Piranha is a powerful tool that can save teams countless hours while creating comprehensive hunt plans that take into account visibility gaps, actual mission requirements, or what you guys look for or care about. It includes technique to tooling mapping, kind of like what we're coming out with attack. It also considers vulnerabilities based on what is in your Nessus scan. Barracuda is a machine learning driven analysis engine that also can save countless hours for analysts that need to analyze a bunch of reports and map what that report is saying to techniques. Barracuda can also feed information into Piranha to be able to build out profiles that then can be shared with other teams or other analysts to get additional enrichment of those profiles. So with that being said, are there any questions?
Thanks, both.
Where can we go to use this software? It looks like one of them was running on localhost, where if you stop your images, is there a GitHub repository?
Right there, my friend. So at the bottom is going to be the GitHub repositories for both of these tools. And yeah, you're absolutely right. So Barracuda just runs on localhost. It's a simple web server that just gets spun up after the model is trained. Takes about 5 minutes to train the model originally, and then it'll spin up the web server. You'll be able to navigate to it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, great presentation and great tools. One point you said that the Barracuda tool attempts to read CTI and parse out the techniques. How can, what type of validation did you do? Because that's very difficult to do. How have you tried to improve that? Just give me a feel for how robust that capability is.
So, yes, sir.
Question is, in the Barracuda tool to extract techniques, how robust is the tool? That is a hard problem.
Yeah, it took a lot of tuning for me to be able to get to a place where I was like, this is pretty accurate. In my testing, however, I was identifying that feeding the same reports into things like ChatGPT or Grok or like Gemini, Claude, I was getting better results more accurately and more consistently with Barracuda. And again, I heard some concern earlier being like, we're analysts, like, why are we doing stuff with AI? Like, it's just going to kick us out of our jobs. scary, right? Well, Barracuda, there still is a little bit of a cleanup because it'll scrape some ad data and stuff. And I messed around and tried to be able to tag ad data, but it made the model like way bigger, and it would go from like 5 to 10 minutes of training to like hours very, very quickly. So I've tuned it. It's at a place where I can feed a report into it, look through the techniques, see what it's pulling and why, and pretty happy with the accuracy.
Just to piggyback on that, I would think, MITRE ATT&CK folks, they do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think you could compare some of their results to yours and try to tune the model to get, near close to theirs.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So the model is completely trained on MITRE data as well. So yeah, I think it's probably pretty similar. But I would love to be able to actually compare.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for your question.
Ivan?
Yeah, you might have just answered my question, but I want to hear a little more.
Mm-hmm.
On the training data set itself, what did you use for the trainer dating? Sorry, I just said dating. I love data, so
yeah.
I dated. The point is, what did you use for the training data set? And a better question, what do you want to expand when you keep going with it and improve the model?
Yeah. So when I was actually building this out, and the way I was trying to tune it, I realized that with people that are like data scientists or data analysts, and they like this type of stuff, I realized that TF-IDF was actually the best way to get a bump in accuracy and confidence with the model. So for those of us who don't know what TF-IDF is, it's a term frequency, interdocument frequency, and it finds relevant keywords, if you will, based on the documents that you're analyzing, right? So I used TF-IDF to be able to go through and bump confidence scores, as well as make it more accurate based on what it was finding in the actual reports, historical reports that I was able to train it on, and then what is actually in the attack framework, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other part of that question was,
Yes.
What was the data set that you applied your data science methodology to?
Oh, it was the attack framework. That's basically it.
The decision to use Esbert model specifically was limited by the resources, or it's like...
What drove your decision to use Esbert?
Yeah, so I was developing this on my work laptop. So yeah, it was like a resource-based decision. But with people that know a lot more about machine learning than I do, I'd love to have a conversation after and see if you guys have any ideas for how I can improve it.
Yes, in the back.
So you're telling me you developed this on active duty under the constraints of a work-issued machine?
Yes, I did.
Amazing.
You get a medal for that? 'Cause that's
It's in the works.
I'll do one more. Excellent tool, excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Can you share a success that you've had by using Piranha or Barracuda?
Yeah, so currently, as far as successes, are you saying like successful identification of an adversary?
Yeah, or a particularly notable hunt.
So for that, just because it's operational data, I would probably have to err on the side of caution. I'll check with the lawyers to see if I can talk about that type of stuff. But I will say that pretty much every branch right now, at least one team is currently using Piranha and Barracuda for operations, for developing hunt plans and stuff.
Congratulations.
Thank
you.